All right, let's go ahead and get started looking at entering attendance. Now, we do that in membership. There are two ways we could enter attendance. We could put in just a count, a head count, or we can actually mark people by name as having attended, or we can do both of those. So there's two different ways you can mark it, or you can do both. Now, to get to attendance entry, up along the top, we could click on the word attendance and then attendance entry. And that's just 2 clicks. Or right here in the middle of the screen are shortcuts. They take you to the same place as if you clicked some of the more clicks up at the top, but these are shortcuts, just one-click shortcuts. So if I click attendance entry in the shortcuts, that takes me to the same screen as clicking attendance and attendance entry in the upper left. All right, so first on this screen, in the upper left, you'll notice you can choose events or groups classes. The default is for both to show. Notice if I look at my list of events and groups classes, I can see all of my groups and classes. I see some events down here as well. Those have a check in that events box. That's how I know it's an event. Only checking one or the other. Notice if I uncheck groups classes and look at my list, it's a lot shorter. Or if I do the opposite, just look at groups classes, my list is now just showing me groups classes and no events. I can also narrow down what I'm seeing in this groups classes box by, if it's a group class and I've set up divisions, departments, and categories when I set those up, I could choose the division, department, or category it's in. Now if you notice, I'm just seeing my classes. If I go to committees, here I'm just seeing committees. So what you check in the upper left, and notice here, if I uncheck groups classes, division, department, category grays out. Events don't have division, departments, and categories, just groups classes. But the things I choose in the upper left here and in this division, department, category box, if it's a group class, can narrow down what I'm seeing in the box below. So I want to go ahead. If I'm doing a head count, then all I need to do here, maybe I want one of my events, Sunday worship. So I'll just choose my Sunday worship. You choose the event or group class you need. And then I need to put in a date. And if you're following along in the book, I'm on the next page, page 3. So we'll choose our date. I already did a little bit earlier, so we see the 17th already has a few things marked. Once I choose my date, notice below I see all the different people. I'm going to uncheck everybody here. We're going to pretend it's blank. We're just putting in a head count. Again, this topic is people counted. So right here we have people counted. I can just type in the amount. Oops. 123. Now, if I put in a head count, then I'm not going to be able to report on what individuals attended because I didn't mark individuals. But this does print on the summary of by event report as the counted column. So you can report on how many people attended each worship service with that people counted. You just can't report on the specifics of who because you didn't mark people. You also can enter an amount collected if you wanted to put that in with your attendance reports. Now this will not carry any money over to donations, doesn't appear on donation reports. This is strictly for your attendance reporting if you want to enter an amount collected. To the right of that amount collected, we have a little detail button. And here we can indicate how many people, adults from membership or children from membership, and then other adults or other children. We can indicate how many, and then a breakdown of how much money was given by each of those different groups. We're not going to put a count in, but that is available if you wanted to get really detailed with your count as to adults versus children and members, non-members, and if you're putting an amount collected, who gave what. All right, so once we're done, we have our people counted in, and that's it. If you'd like, you can click print and do any of these different things with it. We'll look at the summary by event report. It already defaults to select what I have on my attendance entry screen and the date. I can make any other choices there. We're just going to click print real quick so you can see this report. And notice here we have members and visitors and total, and these are all zeros because these figures come from actually marking individual names as present, a member name or a visitor name, and then it would give us a total. We just put in a head count, and we see that here in the counted columns. We have 123 people. All right, let's look now at how we can mark attendance by person. So we'll go ahead and go with the same date, the same Sunday worship. Now, to mark people present, we can do it two different ways. We can use our scroll bar along the side here to find people. It's an alphabetic list, and then we can just mark the person present. One thing you could do that I think makes attendance a lot easier is grabbing this column header present and plopping it over in the middle right beside their name, and then dragging that over. So now that present column is a little closer to the name, and I can, my old eyes, I can see it easier to check it and make sure I'm checking the right person. But I can use my scroll here and then just mark someone present. Or you can also use the search box just above here. If I start typing a name, now using the search box, I can type a name. Whoops, I wanted Frey. Whoops, my fingers aren't working. And maybe I want Nicole. I don't have to use my mouse. I can just use my arrow down key to select Nicole, hit enter, and notice it went right to her, marked her present. I can now start typing the next name. I don't have to clear that name out. My focus is still in that search box where I can look for the next person. Eric Graham came right up, so I don't have to use an arrow up or down. I can just hit enter, and it marks Eric present as well. So that's an easy way. You can either scroll and find the people or use the search box and your arrow keys and your enter key to easily mark people present. Now, if you have a whole family you want to mark present, well, actually, I think I'm getting ahead of myself, so let me get back to the book. If we look at page 6, it talks about attendance by name for a group or class. And that's done the same way. We choose our group or class. We'll just go ahead. Whoops, we don't want a committee. We want classes. I'm just going to choose my first grade class. Notice it pops up the 3 students in that group or class. If there were more students than the screen could show, then I'd have a scroll bar along the right, and I could scroll if I needed to. But with only 3 students, there's no scroll bar, so I can, just use my mouse to mark people present, or again, I can use the search. It's probably kind of silly to use the search in this case because the person is right there. We can see all 3 people in our group or class right on the screen. Now, maybe everyone attended, and we just want to easily mark everyone attended. We can right-click on the column present. I'm not on the header. I'm just right in this column. And I can either check all present, meaning everybody in this first, second grade class. I can uncheck all. I can check if I had an event up where I saw a lot of family members, I could check an entire family present or uncheck present for an entire family. So that's kind of nifty, saves you a little time. Let me turn page. Page 7 mentions using the keyboard to enter names. That is the same as what I just showed you for events. Taking attendance for events and groups classes is really the same. You can either use the scroll bar if it's there, small group or class, you won't have one, or you can use that search box to search for the people. Excuse me. Now, a little different thing between events or groups classes. Let me get my event again and show you the event because it's a little simpler. If you notice across just above the names, we see potential attendees, 125 total, 3 present. Somebody asked, where does this list of names come from? For events and groups classes, that will show everyone in the database, excuse me, as a potential attendee. I've marked some people present here so we can see 3 present. The list of names for your groups and classes, you set the groups and classes up and then you assign people to the group or class. So a group or class, you have to put people in. An event, everyone is a possible attendee for that event. Now, we can create events right here. If you find that the event you need is not in the program, you can click this little plus sign at the end of events and groups classes, and then you can choose events. And here's where you'd put in your code and description for events. This is also where you could delete an event or mark one inactive if you don't want to use it, but you don't want to delete it. Print a list of your events. All right, let me look back at the book here. Middle of page 7 talks about adding a new individual during attendance entry. Maybe you're entering a group or class. Let's go ahead and look at that real quick. Let me go back to my group or class. Oop, I digressed. I wanted to show you the difference between the tabs, and I got distracted here. So notice here we have 2 tabs, potential attendees, and then there's a tab for comments where you can put in different notes. Now when we choose an event, or I'm sorry, a group or class, it looks a little different. Notice we have a tab that shows who is enrolled, the total number, and then once I mark people present, it will show how many are present. And then we have a list of people who are not enrolled, and we can easily click this little enroll button to enroll them in the group or class. Now maybe we realize as we're entering attendance that someone is in this group or class and we haven't added them even to the database yet. We can click this little plus sign at the, plus sign at the end of person, and then that will let us add a new membership individual. So first we would choose the member category or the family category. They're going to be a member, and we need to at least put in a mailing label. So we'll say the Smith family. Or maybe Joe isn't the one. Maybe Joe's the dad and their son, David, attended. And we just want to get David in there, and we're going to add the rest of the people later. I'll mark David as a child since he's in first grade. Add this individual and close. And now we see right up at the top of not enrolled, because we haven't enrolled David. We just added him as a new individual. We're going to go back and add the mom and dad to the household after we get done with our attendance. But here we can see David Smith right at the top of not enrolled, marked present. We want to also enroll him in this group or class. We don't have to exit here to do that. I can just click enroll. And now notice it changed to show 4 people enrolled. And if I click on that tab, we see David Smith is now enrolled in the group or class. So if you're in the middle of attendance entry, realize there's someone you need to add to the database so you can mark them as having attended. You don't have to exit the screen. You can do it right here. Or if you discover that there's someone new to your class and you forgot to enroll them, you can find them right here on this tab and just click the little enroll button at the end of the line. Just enrolled Brian Eli. And now if I go back to enrolled, I can see Brian Eli is enrolled and marked present as well. All right, let's look. We got a few more little things here to look at. We can track communion for an event if we'd like. So let me go back to events. We'll go back to our Sunday worship. Notice right now we're only tracking people who are present. If we'd like to track communion or excused absences, we can click right here in the upper right on options and talk about a couple things here we can do. Upper left, we can opt to track communion for events or groups classes. We'll just mark it for events. We also could track absences, excused absences for events or groups classes. Well, we don't do excused absences for events, but groups classes, maybe we do for our groups and classes, so I'll check that. Also on this tab, we can decide how we want our list of people to sort on the screen. And then in the upper right, if there's fields you would prefer to call a different name, these fields, communion, groups, classes, short name of groups, division, department, or category. The label here in the second column is what appears on the screen. If you want to change it to something else, you can click right here. Maybe we want our short name for groups classes to just be G- or G/C. So we can change that and then click OK. If you want to show the address column, as you can see behind there, we're seeing name, address, and the column for present. We can check this to show the address column. If you don't want it to display, just uncheck it. And if you want your grid to reset to the default, just click Reset Grid Default Layout. So I'm going to click OK. And we should now see the address goes away. And where's my communion column? Let me try that again. I thought I checked it. Track communion for events. We'll say OK. There we go. I don't know why it hiccuped the first time. Now we see a column for both communion and marking them present. And I like to drag these, whoops, my mouse went off the mouse pad, drag those over to the front, and then it's easier to see those closer to the name. Or you could drag them to the end and then just drag the name column over so they're closer to the name column. Must be a really long name because it's not letting me, it's not going all the way over like it did before. It's not cooperating. All right, let's go ahead and look. Oops, I went through page 9, covered excused absences, relabeling fields, and the sort order. One of the last things I want to talk about is tracking additional information. If you have groups and classes, you can set up additional information for those groups and classes. Let me show you really quickly. If we go to attendance, and right beside attendance here you can see where I relabeled for the short name groups and classes, it says GC and then skills interest. But let's go to attendance. Oh no, I'm sorry, groups and classes. It was throwing me off because of the G and the C. And then set up groups classes. And I just want to show you real quick. If I choose one of my groups or classes, we can see over here to the right the different additional information codes we've set up because we want to track some things like whether they participated or learned their verse or brought their Bible. So we can indicate in setup which one of those things we're going to track, and that's how we see those in attendance entry. I'm not going to go into great detail about setting those up because that's a whole different lesson and book. Or portion of the book. So let's go back to attendance entry, and I'm going to choose my first and second grade. Oops, and then I need to choose a date. And now we can see we have a present column and excused, but then we have, if we hover on the column header, we can see what it means. We have a column for participated well, brought friend, and studied lessons. So you can mark those different bits of information for your group or class and then report on those as well. All right. Last thing, well, not last thing, on page 11, it talks about comments. I did show you that. Here we can track the meeting notes, lesson studied, and attendance factors, and you can print those on reports as well. Last thing I want to show you is page 11, viewing the attendance list by event, group, or class. And what it's really talking about here is a way to quickly see, I'm just going to reopen it, what dates I've taken attendance for. I could do this for an event or a group class. I'm going to just go down to my Sunday worship because I know I've taken lots of attendance for that. Over here by date, if I'm looking for something and I just want to see it on screen, I don't have to put the date in. I can click this little box with 3 dots, and it shows me the different dates I've taken attendance for. That's 2019, or I can click the little minus year and change my year back and see attendance for different years. But then here I can just click on the date I need, and now on screen it's showing me the attendance I've taken for 1/13 of 2019. So again, that little box with 3 dots gives you an overview for the group or class you've chosen of what dates you've marked attendance for. And then if I pull that up on screen, I can, if I want to, just hit print. I can do any of these items, reports, labels, or email, or let's just look at the basic summary by event. Here we see it already filled in the date, shows the event for me. You could go to columns and change those if you like. We'll just hit print. And we have a nice condensed report of just a summary by event telling me how many members, how many visitors, total count, and it looks like our head count. We maybe missed a few people, or maybe we have pew cards and some people didn't sign it and the ushers did a head count. So it might not be uncommon to get a different total for the individuals you marked versus if you put in a count. So that concludes what I wanted to show you today.